A good moed. We're continuing the Maimer Ulekachtem Lachem Tafshin Lametes 1978, which the Rebbe gave out and edited for Sukkot Tafshin Nun 1989. Beginning of the Maimer, the Rebbe asked a question regarding Ulekachtem Lachem Bayoyim Harishon. That the Torah says that the mitzvah of lulav and esrog is on the first day, and the Medrash explains that it's rishon lecheshbon avonos. It's the first day because it's the beginning of the new reckoning, the new calculation of sins. And the Rebbe's question was, what's the special connection between that and the mitzvah of lulav and esrog? And moreover, seemingly, the whole concept of lulav and esrog, as the Medrash says, shows the victory of the Jewish people from the judgment of Rosh Hashanah and the continuation Yom Kippur. When we came, the Jewish people and the nations of the world both came to judgment before Hashem. We don't know who's victorious. And the lulav and esrog express and show the victory of the Jewish people, which means it's not Yom HaRishon, it's not a new thing, it's rather a continuation and revealing the victory that happened from the previous time of 2 weeks earlier of Rosh Hashanah and of Yom Kippur. And why do we say that Yom HaRishon? In other words, the day Rishon implies that the concept of taking the 4 kinds on Sukkot is connected to something totally new, that it becomes Rishon, the beginning, a total new beginning. And in order to explain this, the Rebbe explained the mitzvahs of Sukkot, that the whole idea of the mitzvahs of Sukkot is to reveal the oneness of Hashem in the world. However, in revealing the oneness of Hashem in the world, there's various different stages. The first stage is the mitzvah of Sukkah, which is a more general oneness, a oneness that's above separation, meaning the fact that it's showing that all Jews are worthy of sitting in one single sukkah. So without even having a separation, it shows the oneness that's beyond separation, where there is no separation between one and the other. But that isn't where it stops, because the whole point is to draw down that oneness also into the world, a world of separation. And that's brought out and accomplished through the mitzvah of Daled Minim, of taking the 4 kinds, which is specifically in the Sukkah. And it's done specifically after we already did the mitzvah of Sukkah, because it's only done the next morning. And that is the idea of uniting all 4 types, 4 extremes, from one extreme to the other, from the one who has Torah and mitzvahs to the one who doesn't have either, and everything in between, and it all becomes one single mitzvah, as well as the fact that also each type of the 4 kinds is really shows on a oneness, but a oneness which is accomplished through specifically taking the diversity of the world, and in that itself revealing the oneness, such as the esrog lasts through all 4 seasons and unites them all together. The lulav grows in a way that the leaves, the separate leaves, become one. They're totally connected. They're not split. The adasim, that the 3 leaves are in one stem, and the aravis, which grow together. So all of these things show on a oneness in diversity. And that's the concept of the Daled Minim, bringing that oneness of Hashem into a world of diversity, and that's brought out even more with the next mitzvah, which is the Karbanis of Sukkot. That's done even after the mitzvah of taking the 4 kinds, which that is refining and elevating the 70 nations of the world that show on the ultimate diversity, and yet to reveal in them that they agree to the victory of the Jewish people. And not only do they agree, but what comes as a result of the Karbanis is that because each day we bring a different Karban, that's why we say a complete Hallel, in which we say Hallelu es Hashem kol goyim. All the nations of the world praise Hashem, ki gavar aleinu chaste, for the fact that He strengthened His kindness over us, which is not just that they agreed to the victory of the Jewish people, but they actually praise Hashem for it, meaning that the nations of the world in their diversity, in their place where they're nations of the world and a separate entity, and yet not only do they agree to godliness, but they actually accept it and are happy with it. And that concept is even greater, the Rebbe explained, than the fact that Hashem was kind to us. Because the whole ultimate purpose is Dira B'Tachtenim. So the fact that Hashem is kind to us is even brought out more. And it's an even greater thing when the Goyim actually praise Hashem for it, which means that even the diversity of the nation accepts it and praises Hashem for it. And this the Rebbe brought out the mimer of the Rebbe Maharash, that it says in the Yerushalmi, in Berachecha Goy, Anei Acharav Amin. Because it says, Baruch Tiyeh Mikol Amin, when a Goy blesses you, you should answer Amin. And that the Rebbe Maharash explained that Amin is Gematria Havaya Adnai, that's brought down in Kisvei Arizal. Havaya Adnai, explains the Rebbe Maharash, is the connection of Havaya, the godliness that's above the world, with Adnai, with the godliness which is in charge and the master of the physical world. Meaning we're bringing the godliness that's above the world into the world. It's interesting that this Gematria Havaya Adnai is also the same Gematria as the word Sukkah. It's also brought down in Kabbalah Svarim that Sukkah, the word Sukkah, is Gematria Havaya Adnai as well. And this fits very well with the idea that we explained that this is the concept of Sukkah. And it's also something which is brought down in many Mamarim, that Amin is the idea of Nitzachim, of victory. Meaning that the full victory of the Jewish people is expressed with the Amin bringing the godliness into the world. And this is the ultimate of Dira B'Tachtenim. And then the Rebbe says the following, that since this idea is the purpose of creation, this is what a person's doing here, this is what a person's mission in this world, is to reveal the godliness that's above the world, in the world, to the extent that all the nations of the world not only accept it, but are actually happy with it. That's the ultimate idea of Dira B'Tachtenim, of making a dwelling place for Hashem down here. Therefore, it must be that a Jew has the power. A Jew is given the power to do it. Where does this power come from? And this is where the Rebbe tells what we mentioned earlier as well. The story of the Rebbe Maharash. That the Rebbe Maharash used to travel. Used to take a drive in his carriage every day. And once he took a different path than the usual. And all the Goyim and the nations of the world, everyone that noticed this, they all bowed to him. And someone who was there mentioned this to Rebbe Maharash, and the Rebbe Maharash said, of course. Whom then does it say, Baruch Tiyeh Mikol Amim? In other words, this is the natural way things should be. So the Rebbe says when a story happens with the Rebbe, it's not just a story, it's a lesson. And even more than that, the fact that a story happens with the Rebbe is in order to give us the power to have this ability to actually accomplish this in the world. Moreover, the fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe told this story, so a Rebbe told this story as well, and publicized this story, adds even more to the strength that we get. Which means that this story that happened with the Rebbe Maharash isn't just a story, and the fact that we were told about it isn't just that we were told about it, but that's giving us the power. A Jew, every single Jew, the power that no matter what happens, and no matter what the situation is, that we're able to actually accomplish our mission, which our mission in the world is not only to do what we're supposed to, but to actually transform those who are nations of the world, even those who have been opposing forces, that they actually bow to us and respect and recognize how we are Hashem's nation. And the Rebbe continues that this power is especially given in the Yom Tov of Sukkot. The Yom Tov of Sukkot is a time when through the Sukkah, and the Lulav and Esrog, and especially through the Karbanis of Sukkot, and in our time through saying it in the davening of Musaf, we bring about this idea that all the nations of the world, Kol Goyim, all the nations, and all the nations includes even those who earlier were in a way of opposition. That means even though then they were opposing us, They were standing in the way, not allowing us to do what we're supposed to do. They were trying to stop us from doing what we're supposed to do. Not only now do they agree to our victory, but they actually praise Hashem for it. This idea comes on Sukkot, and it gives us the power all year. That it gives the lesson and the power to every Jew at all times, that Baruch Tiyah Mikol Ha'amim, from all the nations, including from those who were earlier opposing, which gives a Jew the power in all times, that when we try and do what we're supposed to do, and it seems like there's people who are standing in the way, not only should we not become weakened by that fact that there's people, including Goyim and nations of the world, that are standing in the way and trying to stop us from our Avodah. Not only should that not cause a weakness in Avodah, or weakening in our Avodah, and certainly not bring us to a thought of Yush, of giving up hope, of feeling despondent. On the contrary, a person should realize that the whole purpose of them standing in the way is only so that I should recognize and I should understand that there's nothing that can hold me back from doing what Hashem wants. And the moment I decide that I'm going to fulfill my shlichus, that I'm going to fulfill the mission that's given to me by Hashem, without taking anything into account, and standing strong, and not taking any of the hardships and any of the things that are standing in the way into account, then that will bring that a person should see clearly, and clearly in an open way that he can see it even with his physical material eyes, that all of the hardships, their entire purpose was not to stop him. On the contrary, was in order to give him the ability to do what he's supposed to do in an even stronger manner. Because this gives him also the advantage of the avodah of nisyonis, because otherwise every day we ask Hashem, and we were told to ask Hashem, please don't bring us to a test. So we don't want to have a test. But the fact that the test comes, and there comes the things that hold us back and that try to hold us back from doing what we're supposed to do, gives us the advantage of also having the nisayon and overcoming the nisayon to the extent that in the end, not only won't they hold us back, but all of those things which seem to be opposition, they'll be transformed, that they'll help us. Not only will they admit to our victory, but they'll help us and they'll bless us. And Baruch Tiyah Mikol Ha'amim, all the nations, which will also fulfill in that way the purpose of Dira B'Tachtainim, that even the Tacht and the lowest aspect of the world becomes a dwelling place for Hashem. That power comes from the Yom Tov of Sukkot. That's what the Yom Tov of Sukkot is. That Yom Tov of Sukkot gives us the power to do this. And then the Rebbe continues to say that in truth, how do we actually do this? What is the power? What is the avodah? What's this thing that a Jew has to do which enables the transformation even of the nations of the world? So the Rebbe says that this comes through a person awakening the level in his soul, which is the level of Yechida, the Yechida Shebenefesh. We all know that the soul has 5 parts: Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, and Yechida. Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama are what's called the Koiches Pnimim, the inner powers, the inner levels of the soul that affect action, speech, thought, practical, emotional, and intellectual. Then there's Chaya, which is the more makif, it's a higher power of the neshama. Yechida is that spark that's always one with Hashem. And that there's nothing in the world that can stand in the way of it. And as we've mentioned already earlier, the idea of Maida'ani, that when a person wakes up in the morning, the main thing that wakes up when everything else, every other aspect of his soul is being concealed and being held by the powers of impurity. The only thing that's left is the Yechida, that's the Maidani in the morning. That Yechida is always there no matter what. When a Jew arouses his Yechida, which means that power in him, which nothing in the world can stop, that power in him that's one with Hashem, that Yechida has the ability also to reveal the sparks of godliness that are inside the things that seem to be opposition, to the extent of transforming them into into real helpers. We know that idea is brought down in Chassidus, that it says in Gemara that there's a kinyan called kinyan daled amis. When a person walks in the street, something that's within 4 cubits of the person, if it's hefker, if it's something which is ownerless, even if the person doesn't realize it's there, it becomes his. And in the halacha part of Torah, the various commentaries of the Gemara have a very hard time explaining how does this really work. But Chassidus explains that it's known, that it's brought down in Kabbalah Svarim, that the yichida of a person spreads out around him in the 4 cubits around him. Now what's the purpose and what's the point of the yichida? The yichida is that aspect of the soul which is always one with Hashem, in which there is nothing separated from Hashem, and that yichida has the power actually to reveal the spark of godliness that's in everything, even in the things that are around the person. And in the same thing over here, when a person stands with taikef, with a strong power, he uses the yichida of his soul. The yichida of his soul that nothing can oppose, to say, no, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do no matter what, and I'm not going to be nispol, I'm not going to take into account any of the things that seem to be holding me back. Then that yichida actually brings out the godliness and the essence and the reality that's within everything, even in the opposition, to the extent of transforming them and making that they themselves should not only not oppose him, but they should actually help him. And this, the truth is that in a sense, once that happens, the Rebbe says, in a way there's an advantage in the fact that the opposing, the seemingly opposing factors also help a Jew serve Hashem. There's an advantage in that even over the power of the Yechida itself. Because the power of the Yechida is not making anything new, is not changing anything. It's only revealing the true status that is there already. Whereas when we take something that was earlier opposing and it transforms and becomes a helper, then that way we actually change, we transform the world to become a dwelling place for Hashem, which is the ultimate purpose of creation, changing the world and making it a dwelling place for Hashem, which will be revealed in the coming of Mashiach. We'll continue with this idea tomorrow.